Welcome to Super Talk, the podcast that scratches your superhero itch. Just two suburban dads nerding out over superhero stuff on the small screen and the big. Buckle up, people. Enjoy the ride. All right, Professor, are you ready?
Let's go.
Let's roll. In 3.
Welcome to Super Talk, the weekly podcast dedicated news and reviews of comic book media on the big and small screen. This is episode number 87. I'm your host, Brian Professor Pettis, and with me, as always, is my illustrious co-host, Titanium Tony Estrella. Titanium, we're back in studio.
Back in the studio from our adventures abroad. Not really abroad, but in Bluemont, Virginia.
Felt abroad.
It felt like it was out there, right?
I like feeling abroad.
Yeah.
Who doesn't like feeling abroad?
Hey, he's here all week. Try the veal. But I tell you what, that was a lot of fun. Thanks to everybody that came out and supported Super Talk podcast there and Bear Chase Brewery. And a huge thank you to Bear Chase Brewery for promoting the show and helping us set up and everything. It was a hell of a venue. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it ended up being a great day. We had a lot of people, a lot more than I thought would come out to support the show, and met a lot of new people as well, and probably got some new supporters from that event. It was a wonderful day. Had a great podcast, listened to some music, and watched the kickoff of the NFL season there at Bear Chase Brewing Company. And again, thanks to them. They did a bang up job, and we will be back.
Absolutely. They asked us back. They said, please come again. The weather kind of sucked at first. It got absolutely gorgeous later on. But the weather was a little rough. They said that it usually is a lot more crowded at that time. It might have been best that it wasn't, because we were kind of battling some noises and stuff. Oh,
man down.
Man down.
Man down. Sniper.
What scared me is that the staff of power kind of moved a little bit there, but that seems to be stable for now. So who knows? But yeah, it was a lot of fun. They asked us back, so we're definitely going to go back there and do it again. We're trying to cook something up for the 100th episode, which falls about Christmas time.
Yeah, I think you and I were doing some calculations, and I believe it's the week before, the week after Christmas. It's right around that time
Christmas
frame.
Weekend. Yeah,
Christmas weekend.
Yeah.
So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be coming up with some kind of plan. We're definitely going to be looking. I think we're planning on doing another live show for our 100th episode. So stay tuned. We'll be in touch with details.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, let's get the show rolling.
All right. Well, before we get started, we'd like to thank the listeners that bring the show to you, and those are our patrons. Patreon.com is how you become a patron of the show. It only costs $1 an episode, people, and all that does is donates to the show that you guys listen to and love and enjoy. So patreon.com/supertalk if you want to support us. We'd really appreciate it, and thank you very much to those of you that are already doing that today.
Yeah, thanks, people.
So let's jump into the review section. We do have a new episode of She-Hulk to review. She-Hulk episode 5 came out this past week. Not my favorite episode of the season thus far, but some interesting little tidbits in this episode for sure.
Yeah, again, this show is fun. It's kind of cute. I don't know where they're going with it, which is interesting. We know we're going to get Daredevil very shortly here. No Wongers in this. No Wong in this. But yeah, it's a fun show. We were just talking about this before the show started. I was finishing the Rings of Power, the latest episode of that. That show I actually look forward to, and this show I look forward to it, but not as much as the House of Dragons or the Rings of Power. It's still a very good show, and I went into it with the right mindset. It's a fun, quirky comedy type of show. Don't look for any in-depth. They came out and they released the Secret Invasion. That show is now an espionage spy thriller. That's what they've labeled it as, which is kind of cool. I think that'll be really interesting. That's the kind of twist that they have on that.
Yeah, I think this show is exactly how they marketed it as.
Sure.
It's a half-hour courtroom comedy.
Yeah.
I look at it like the same way I looked at some of the sitcoms I watched, back in the 90s. So say Friends and Seinfeld. It's not like you were oh my God, the new episode of Friends is coming out, but you were happy to sit down and watch it because it was entertaining.
Yeah.
And that's the same way I look at She-Hulk. It's not like, oh my God, there was a major cliffhanger last episode, we got to see what happens this episode. But I think the self-contained nature of each episode does entertain you. I mean, again, this episode was entertaining for sure.
Yeah.
And I do...
But probably the weakest episode they put out.
Oh, from a content perspective, for sure. I mean, this episode, we won't spend too much time on it. It did center around Titania. She was back. We saw at the end of episode 4 that she had trademarked the name She-Hulk and was now using it to market this offshoot brand of cosmetics, calling it She-Hulk, claiming that she had trademarked the name, and Jennifer's brother ends up coming to the apartment and says, how'd you let her do that? Why didn't you trademark your name? She's like, I didn't think I had to. She's like, that's the way it works. Whoever is first is the one who gets it, right? And so, she's more, I think, pissed off that Titania's, benefiting from and profiting off of her fame and notoriety and using her name as she's driving down the street and seeing billboards and commercials on TV. It's like everywhere.
That's funny. It's a nice premise.
Yeah.
It's a funny premise.
Yeah, very funny. And so she confronts her and tells her to stop. She ends up, hiring one of the lawyers from her firms to represent her in court. They sue her. And basically most of the episode is her kind of trying to justify that, the She-Hulk name was never a thing until somebody called me that, and now it's been used in the public about me, not you. And so she ended up, I think the gist of that was
winning the case.
Of course, she was going to win the case, right?
Yeah, she made a dating profile and accepted the name She-Hulk, and that kind of solidified her case.
Yeah, all of the guys she went on the dates from her Tinder app or whatever it's called on this thing. They brought them all into court and used them as witnesses. I think the more entertaining part of the show, we got Pugs and her friend Nikki. Pugs is a closet sneakerhead, and he's got a connection, and Nikki convinces him to hook her up with his connection.
Yeah, his drip broker.
My drip broker.
Yeah.
The new Iron Mans are coming out.
Yeah.
But she convinces him to kind of connect her with his drip broker so that they can, work on Jennifer's wardrobe because it's horrible, right? She's wearing Men's Warehouse extra large suits, that she's now barely fitting into and looks terrible. She's like, we need to work on her fashion.
Yeah, even Titanium said something. This made me laugh. She goes, "Nice suit, Shrek."
When she called her
Shrek when she walked into that. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, that was very funny. But we did get to meet the drip broker, or the designer who outfits superhumans or superheroes or whatever, and he agrees to put together a wardrobe.
Did it have a little bit of the Fantastics?
Oh, the guy, the
Olga, what's her name?
The little short little girl,
the short little lady,
from The Incredibles.
The Incredibles.
Yes, very similar. But he's like, okay, I'll work on it, and I think that was the best part of this episode. At the end of the episode, she shows up to get her wardrobe, and we've seen some scenes from the trailers in the forthcoming episodes that she does have some more form-fitting suits that theoretically now are elastic, so they kind of grow and shrink with her as she grows and shrinks, and from Jennifer to She-Hulk. But then we also understand, he did mention, and I did another little something for you too, and we've seen the scene with her and Daredevil wearing her purple and white kind of form-fitting outfit, and so I believe that's the other thing he made for her as well.
Yeah.
But the big Easter egg here, and by the way, no post-credit scene from this episode for the first time, which leads me to believe that the ending scene of the episode was kind of their post-credit scene, in that he was, giving her garments, and one of his assistants had left out something, a hat,
a helmet,
which was Daredevil's helmet, and complaining, hey, don't you respect the privacy of our clients, and so we see Daredevil's yellow helmet in a box that he had made for him. So I think they're basically telling us that Daredevil is coming, and I believe that next episode hopefully will be the Daredevil first appearance.
Good, not great, but yeah, it was a fun episode.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
I like it more than Miss Marvel.
Oh, without question.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. Again, I'm not like blown away by every episode, but I am entertained by them. Yeah. So that's all I'm asking for at this point in time.
I think she's adorable too. I think she's a great actress when she's not the She-Hulk even. And I think going forward into the MCU, I can see them using She-Hulk a lot in a lot of situations.
And the other big thing that happened in the credits, massive Easter eggs. There was a scene in the credits there. It's
like a rendering, a drawing,
a comic book, a drawing of the drip broker with the sneakers, and he's holding the Iron Man sneakers. But on the wall were all of these other Marvel-themed sneakers, and the Easter eggs in that shot alone were like off the charts. Like there were Wolverine sneakers, there were Mr. Fantastic sneakers, there were Thing sneakers, there was Deadpool sneakers.
Yeah, Deadpool sneaker,
that really kind of gave a lot of people who were like, oh my God, look at all these characters are now kind of canonizing in the MCU.
Yeah. Take it at face value, people. Don't read into it too much. I know. Trust someone that got burnt reading into a lot of the what was it?
Did you see the Mephisto sneakers?
There it is. There it is. He's gonna make an appearance sooner or later. I mean,
one of these days.
One of these days,
Alice.
Vindication.
Yeah, but So again, really, really cool. I'm looking for. I do believe that once Charlie Cox shows up and we do get Matt Murdock and Daredevil, I do believe things will kind of take off a little bit.
I hear he's only in one episode though.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that would surprise me, but also not surprise me at the same time. But I'm looking forward to seeing him. He's such a good character, and I do wish we are going to see a lot more of him in the coming years. I believe that wholeheartedly. So that'll be great.
Now I did hear a rumor that what's in Daredevil, his buddy Fozzie? Is it Fozzie? The blonde guy?
You nailed it.
No, not even. What's his name? Fuzzy? Fozzie? Fluffy?
Fozzie's a bear on the Muppets.
Fluffy?
You're getting closer.
Bubbly?
Yes, you're getting closer.
No. What's his name?
It's
the blonde guy.
Yeah, I know. His partner.
His partner. I hear they signed him for Daredevil.
That's awesome. So
I think so too.
I was wondering if we were going,
but it's not going to be connected to the Netflix show whatsoever.
Really?
No, not whatsoever. They're going to keep some of the same characters, but it's not affiliated with the Netflix show whatsoever, which is interesting to me. So it's almost like the Netflix show never happened.
Right? They kind of like took all the characters and all the actors, but just basically erased the history of the Netflix show and are starting over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be an origin story, but I think it's going to be a complete reboot.
Well, I'm looking forward to that, and
to me it doesn't matter. What
did we say? 18 episodes or something?
You said that. Yeah. You said it's going to be a lot of
Daredevil
episodes.
Born Again.
Yeah, Daredevil Born Again. 18 episodes would be tremendous.
Yeah.
And I think they'll do very similar what they did to the Netflix show and kind of show history and a back history of it. But I think it's going to be very, very different. And even darker. We know Kingpin is in it. We know that, so that'll be interesting.
Well, and we are going to see both of them in Echo, right? So,
and also now I hear that the actress that plays Echo is going to be in that as well.
Really, she's going to be in the Daredevil Born Again series?
Yeah,
so I had not heard that.
Which tells me it is moving forward. It's not going to go back.
Right. So maybe Echo is kind of a lead-in to the Daredevil series then. Maybe a lot of the things that happen in the Echo series are just going to go forward into the Daredevil series.
Be interesting. Yeah.
Foggy, by the way.
Foggy
Nelson.
Fluffy.
Fozzie Bear.
I was so close. Foggy, Fuzzy, Fozzie. So close.
You got it.
Foggy.
Got it. And
Great character.
Yeah, and I hope they bring back Karen Page as well, because she was fantastic. She's Deborah Wall or whatever her name is the actress. She was in True Blood. I'm a big fan of hers as well. So I hope they bring all of those characters back, because they had such chemistry on the original Daredevil series.
I think that's what made some of the popularity of the show.
Oh,
right?
for sure. Yeah, for sure. Well, that'll be great. So anyway, we're looking forward to the next episode, and I do hope it's the Daredevil episode. We only have 4 more. Is it 8 or 9?
9.
9. So we
only
have 4
9.
more.
Yep.
And I believe that runs us straight into the Werewolf by Night special, right? So Werewolf by Night specials...
Actually, they'll overlap. I guess Werewolf by Night comes out October 7th. There's one more She-Hulk episode
after
the week
that?
after that, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's great. So
Yeah.
we'll have a lot to talk about. That's fantastic. And so I don't know. They have not made any official announcements about the holiday special for Guardians of the Galaxy yet.
Yeah.
We expect that that's coming soon. James Gunn did come out and say something about, yeah, that's still happening. It is a Marvel special production. I guess that's what Werewolf by Night is, a special production, right? So yes, it is. That's what's going to happen. We have to have an announcement about that soon. But are we kind of like no Disney Plus series from Marvel through kind of Secret Invasion early next year?
I think it's going to be pretty dry. I think it's going to be pretty dry. I mean, it's going to be...
we got Werewolf by Night.
Yeah.
Then we've got Black Adam coming out right after that.
Yep.
And then we got Wakanda Forever in November. And then...
really nothing.
We'll talk about Avatar for like 3 weeks or something like that. I don't know. We'll figure it out. All right. Well, let's jump into the news section. We got a few things this week I did want to talk about. So... big announcement from Warner Brothers, and this came out of nowhere, and it surprised a lot of people. They did announce that they are coming out with a sequel to the Constantine movie. That movie was done in like 2006 or something like that, a long time ago. That movie came out a long time ago, and I really liked it.
It was great.
It was great, and I thought he played a great Constantine as well. But yeah, nothing since. But they'd announced that they're coming out with a Constantine 2. So Warner Brothers will be making a sequel to that movie, a Constantine 2, starring Keanu Reeves. He is going to reprise his role as Constantine, which is fantastic.
Fantastic, and also a little
it's
confusing.
Warner Brothers.
Yeah, it's Warner Brothers. A little confusing because all the rumors were, well, Marvel signed Keanu to something.
Right.
They've signed him. And then we come out and hear that he's going to reprise his role. So a little confusing, but interesting.
Look, lots of stuff this week about, we've talked about the difficulty that Warner Brothers has had in identifying and hiring their Kevin Feige, right? The guy who's going to lead and shepherd the Warner Brothers and DC properties into the next, couple of decades. From the rumors out there, they've offered the job to a couple people that turned it down. They've, kind of now been talking to a couple of other people, and they're in conversations. But the big rumors out there now are that Warner Brothers Discovery is in a lot of trouble financially. They've got so much debt. They are really, really having trouble not only securing their debt, but also looking how we're going to get out from underneath the problem that we're in right now. Who would take that job? I mean, that's the problem. It's like the question is, well...
there's so much riding on it. Whoever takes that job...
it's so important.
Literally needs to be very similar
but you're walking in with handcuffs on.
Of course.
Because you're like, we want you to make great movies of high quality, but, by
the way, they need to gross enough to get us out of this overwhelming debt.
Right.
I mean, that's crazy. I mean, Jon Favreau?
Yeah.
Did I get it?
Yeah. Cool. You nailed that one.
Yes.
For sure.
Well... think about the pressure on him to make that first Iron Man movie when Marvel was close to bankrupt. And he pulled that out of his ass. But I think what he felt was, look, the worst I can do is what's going to happen anyway. So I'm going to go for it.
Well, what they did with the limited budget they were given for that movie...
and they took a chance on an actor that was questionable.
Well, had a checkered past. Without,
That's being kind.
Checkered past.
Checkered past to say anything.
Right. So anyway, we'll see what happens with Constantine. The fact that they announced it is great, but again, there's lots of stuff going on over at Warner Brothers. We'll see where that goes. Did get an announcement that New Mutants, the movie that you and I tried to see for about 2 years before we actually, during COVID, finally made it into the theaters to watch this movie. Which was great. Yeah, there was nobody in that theater either. I mean, we were like literally like one of the first people to venture back into a movie theater.
And the movie wasn't bad.
No, I actually enjoyed it.
I liked it.
Was it Anya Taylor? Oh. What's her?
Smoke
yeah,
show.
she was fantastic.
King's Gambit.
The Queen's Gambit.
Gambit.
Yeah, she was really great as Magic in that movie. I thought it was actually pretty entertaining.
Yeah.
And again, the whole story behind that movie was it was a Fox property. It was coming out in the theaters. Marvel bought 20th Century Fox Studios. Kevin Feige's like, hang on a second, let's just wait and see. We might want to make some changes based on where it's going to fit into the whole, MCU and everything else. And then eventually he's like, nah, we'll just run it the way it is. And then COVID hit, and then it got delayed and got delayed and got delayed. And eventually it came out in like late 2020. Yeah. But that movie's coming to Disney Plus. The reason I'm mentioning it is now it is coming to Disney Plus on the 14th of October. You'll be able to watch The New Mutants on Disney Plus.
It's good, people. Check it out.
Yeah, I thought it was very entertaining. Yeah. Unfortunately...
It's dark.
Yes. And I'll say this with a grain of salt. Unfortunately, I think had Fox continued to own the X-Men franchise and properties, they may have done something more with this cast of characters. A lot of names in this movie. We had the guy from Stranger Things played Cannonball. We had Maisie Williams from Game of Thrones played
Arya Stark.
She was she played Wolfsbane. So we had some names in this, and I think they might have done something with these characters going forward. But that was the end of the Fox kind of studios run on the X-Men. So will they ever use these characters again? Probably, or maybe. Will they take the same actors and actresses and use them again?
Probably not.
Maybe not. But anyway, it's an entertaining movie, so go check it out. October 14th, it'll be on Disney Plus streaming, so great. Another rumor this week that one thing we did not hear about during D23 was...
We know it's confirmed.
Right, they greenlit Shang-Chi 2, and we were like, well, how come no announcement? No date, nothing on the timeline. But the rumor now is that this does have a slot on February 14th of 2025, so a little over 2 years from now. It will be coming to theaters as Shang-Chi 2, no title, nothing. No.
This is a big rumor, very loose.
Yeah, very loose. But this will come out after the Fantastic Four movie, but before Avengers Kang Dynasty. Yeah. So... kind of more integrating the Shang-Chi character into the Avengers team, and maybe obviously playing a role in the Kang Dynasty. And
how's he going to direct both those movies, basically?
Well, that's the other thing. Daniel, what's his name? Dustin Daniel Cretton, the director of Shang-Chi, is coming back to direct Shang-Chi 2, and he's also been tagged to direct Kang Dynasty. So the question is, well, how is he going to do both? The rumor is he's doing them back to back. Oh. He's basically filmed, so they're saying now that Shang-Chi 2 is likely a prequel into Kang Dynasty, that this is the movie that's leading directly into that movie. Yeah. And so he's filming Shang-Chi 2, and it may have some other characters that are going to be part of the Kang Dynasty movie in it, and then it'll just ramp right into Kang Dynasty. Like whatever happens in Shang-Chi 2 will start off the Kang Dynasty movie. So
I would
similar to what the Russo brothers did with Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah.
They kind of filmed them together and then just released them as separate movies. So I think he's going to do that with this movie.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I thought Kang Dynasty would be Shang-Chi 2. I mean, with that director and him being a pivotal member of an Avengers team, I thought that would be, but that's interesting.
Well, as far as Kevin Feige says, there is no Avengers team right now. There is no Avengers team at the moment. We know there will be one because we're coming out with Avengers movies in 2025, so we know there will be an Avengers team, and maybe that's what this multiverse saga is about, building that team back up. And I would believe that both Captain America 4 and potentially some repercussions from what happens in the Thunderbolts movie kind of talk about how the Avengers team kind of reforms, and maybe some of the other things that are going on with some of the younger Avengers characters. We'll kind of see.
Cool.
But, let's get into our topic of the week. And something I wanted to talk about this week. We had some pretty big announcements from both Marvel and Sony this week in regards to some changes to their schedule. And I think there's some things behind these announcements that I want to talk through, but also some things that concern me a little bit, and we'll kind of get into it. So first, Sony, and oh, by the way, this is brought to us by our friends over at Studio G Studios. Hey, Goat.
Always.
Thanks for all your help, buddy.
Thanks, Goat.
We really appreciate everything you guys do for us.
Studio G Studios, home of the Man Band.
Please check them out. And
juicy, delectable corn, Kernels of Heaven, Corn on the Cob.
There we go. So anyway, big announcement this week from Sony Pictures. They announced some pretty massive delays to some of the projects they had already scheduled. So first, Kraven the Hunter. We know this movie's filming right now, I believe, correct? Like Aaron Taylor Johnson.
It's in the can. It's done filming.
It's done.
Yeah.
It's finished.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Taylor Johnson is playing the role of Kraven the Hunter. We knew that this was kind of a pivotal character in the Sinister Six and kind of what they were going to be doing with the Spider-Verse. That movie was scheduled to be released next January 13th, 2023. It's been pushed back all the way to October.
That's crazy.
Of 2023.
That's crazy. That is such a huge push.
Yeah.
For what reason? None given.
None given. They just announced a delay to the schedule. And then the other movie they had on the schedule, Madam Web, was scheduled for that October 6th date of 2023. It's now been moved to February 16th, 2024.
Now that is still in production. That they're still filming. That isn't even finished filming yet. So, but geez, that's
pretty big delay.
Upsetting. Yeah, it's huge.
And then they also had another movie on their kind of slate. This was an unannounced project. They hadn't given a name to it. Untitled movie was scheduled to be released in June of 2024 from Sony. It's now been pushed back a month to July. The rumors are that that's either a Spider-Man / Venom movie.
Yeah.
It could be a Sinister Six movie. We don't know what that movie is, but you know it's been pushed back a month. Whatever it is, there's no announcements about it. But this comes on the heels, which I think they're related to some extent. There was a project, and I mentioned this to you when we got the schedule from Marvel at Comic-Con, and there were all the dates that they laid out for Phase 4 and Phase 5, right? So they laid out all these dates. And one of the dates that was missing from their schedule had already been announced by Marvel as a release date for a movie, and that was February 16th, 2024. They had come out with release dates earlier in the year, and when we saw the schedule that they mapped out, that date was missing. And my gut told me, and I mentioned this to you, that I believe that's Deadpool 3. I think Deadpool 3 is coming out in February 2024. Mm-hmm. It makes a ton of sense for lots of different reasons. If you want to get him into the MCU, if you want to make him part of Secret Wars, all of a sudden that just makes sense for that movie to come out then. Well, Marvel came out and said, well, the movie we had scheduled for February 16th, 2024 has been moved to September of 2024. When that announcement was made, that's when Sony grabbed that date that they had for Madam Web and moved it into that slot, because now Marvel had vacated that date. So that's kind of interesting to me. If that is Deadpool 3, so what we understand now, we heard some rumors this week as well that Stefan Kapicic, I think that's how you pronounce his name.
The Russian guy.
Plays Colossus in the Deadpool movies.
That's the silver.
Yeah, he's all CGI,
guy.
right?
Yeah. Chrome guy.
He plays Colossus both in Deadpool 1 and 2. He's coming back for Deadpool 3, and he did confirm that they will begin filming this movie next year. So that movie has not yet begun filming, but it will begin filming in 2023. Was this date of February 16th, 2024 already slated for Deadpool 3 and now they have to delay it for some reason? Is it, one of the things that we just heard this week? Blake Lively's pregnant again.
Yeah.
Blake Lively announced
their fourth child.
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively will be welcoming their fourth child, and so she's pregnant. Well, go think about this, from a timeline perspective. If she's going to have a baby, let's say 6 months from now, how quickly do you think they're going to begin filming of Deadpool 3 with a newborn at the house, right?
Yeah.
So maybe a newborn showing up. I mean, usually you don't announce a pregnancy until you're like 3 months in. Mm-hmm. So let's say it's 6 months from
January,
now.
February.
We're talking, February time frame.
Yep.
He's not going to be heading off to the studio to start filming a movie for at least a couple more months. So maybe April, May time frame.
Correct.
So maybe I'm just thinking maybe that was a reason to kind of push the schedule back a little bit.
Yeah.
So if they don't get that movie filmed until, they'll say spring of next year starts, get it in the can, in the fall, winter time frame. There's a lot of CGI and editing and all kinds of other stuff they have to do.
2024 makes sense.
Maybe, well, it was going to be February 2024. Maybe pushing it back to a later date in September made a lot of sense for them. So I just think that has something to do with the reason they pushed that. And again, we've got no announcements from Marvel.
None. This is all speculation. But it makes sense. It makes sense. If we're going to connect the dots, it totally makes sense.
Yeah. Let me get my computer back up here.
Blake Lively's pregnancy, absolutely. I mean, that's just the kind of guy he is. He's going to...
Family. Well, that was one of the reasons why he said he was taking a break from movies. After he came out with Free Guy and what was the special he did on Netflix? The one about him.
Red Note? Red Letter?
No. The one where he was like the time traveling guy who was going back and forth in time and had the kid that you don't remember that movie?
No. Adam Project?
Adam Project.
Okay.
So those two movies came out, and then he was basically...
The sci-fi flick.
Yes, right? He was going to be taking a break from movies, and so he's been on a hiatus, and a lot of us were saying, well, he probably needs to finish writing Deadpool, and then we know that, but he said he wanted to spend some time with his family, so I think this has a lot to do with that. But again, we know this movie's starting filming next week. There's a lot of other rumors out there, too, that, we know... Ryan Reynolds wants this to be a rated R movie. And we know Marvel has never released a rated R movie.
Correct.
Never.
Right.
And so there is questions out there around, is there continuous pressure from Kevin Feige and the executives at Marvel to back off a little bit, get it into that PG-13 rating so that we can really crush the box office and fit it into... That's the other thing. You come out with an R-rated Deadpool movie... And then Deadpool shows up in Secret Wars, and is he dropping F-bombs everywhere? Is he, it's like, or does he scale back at that point in time? Or are we bleeping him out every time the word's coming out of his mouth? And I think he's under a lot of pressure. I think it would
be a huge mistake.
Of course it would be.
To cut it back to a PG. A huge mistake. I think Deadpool is an R-rated character. I think you absolutely cripple the character if you pull him back as far as his openness and his R-rated. I think it's a huge mistake. So
what do they do when he cameos in other movies? What do they do with him when?
Well, he's not going to be the lead, right? So his sections there will be sassy. They will be inappropriate for sure, but I don't think they go beyond him you dropping F-bombs and being very nuts. I still think it can work because the movie isn't based around Deadpool, but a Deadpool movie
has to be rated
R.
Yeah, it just makes me wonder: is that something that's also causing some of these delays, or are those conversations continuing to happen?
No, I think, Professor, I think you're right on with Blake Lively's pregnancy. I think that time frame completely makes sense to start filming a movie 6-9 months after the birth of his child. Not after, but the birth of his child. Wait a couple of months to get her healthy, settled in with the kid, and then start filming. Him on the set, 24/7, which he likes to do. So I think that makes completely sense.
Yeah, we talked about this last week at our live show. We reviewed all the announcements from D23. Very disappointed in some of the things that weren't announced. Nothing about casting, all the casting rumors that were out there on the internet. All these people that have been rumored, like you said, Keanu Reeves and Ryan Gosling and Denzel Washington and the Fantastic Four rumors that are out there. Nothing was addressed there. We had nothing about Deadpool. Nothing about
Fantastic Four.
We got
Mutants.
Nothing about mutants. We got none of that. And so the question then becomes, well, are we kind of like now going to have to be satiated with what we've been given? And are we waiting now for Comic-Con next summer to get more details and more announcements from Marvel? Or are they going to incrementally make announcements and release things kind of over the next few months? Again, the fact that we haven't heard anything about the holiday special is shocking to me.
Yeah. Considering
it's September and that's coming out in December.
I'm learning more from Lego, to be honest with you. And I'm really upset at myself I have a huge spoiler, by the way.
Okay.
Huge. I don't want to tell you.
Well,
I don't want to.
That's what we're here for. That's our show.
It's a huge spoiler. Are you sure?
For which movie?
Wakanda Forever.
Okay.
Lego set was leaked, and I know who the Black Panther is. It's Siri.
It is.
Yeah. It was a huge upset for me. I'm mad at myself for finding it, and I really didn't find it. It just kind of popped up. A Lego set was leaked. It's the Battle of the Sea, and it's this black kind of, and you see it in the trailer with the Dormaji. How do you say that?
Dormalage.
They're diving over this wall,
Right.
kind of backwards, and they're on ropes with things as the Atlanteans are kind of climbing up this ship to attack it. It's in that battle scene that Namor in the Lego set jumping out, and then Shuri is the Black Panther, and they have
Shuri.
Shuri is the Black Panther, and they have
She is the Black Panther.
She is in this Lego set. She is absolutely wearing the Black Panther outfit, and I was upset. I was like, "Damn it! I really wanted it to be Killmonger. You know, I wanted it to be him, but." I guess she's taken the mantle, so I did see that. So I'm upset. I'm sorry.
Well, and this is not the first time this has happened. We do, and I think all.
And we've speculated she would be the Black Panther for this movie.
Well, we have seen this many times before, where toy sets get announced and get released prior to movies coming out, and they do give away themes and plots. I mean, we saw this with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. We saw the big scene before the trailer even came out with the big, gigantus, Lego
or Thor:
set.
Love and Thunder. We saw what Gore would look like and what he would be, and then he had the Necro Sword in Thor: Love and Thunder in that battle scene,
right?
And that that the mighty Thor was going to be in it with her costume.
Right, we saw her as a Marvel Legends figure. Yeah, so this happens. I mean, look, these toys.
I'm just bummed that I found it out, because in my mind I had this this image of him and her, like before and we still don't know how he dies in the movie. They had a kid, and he would grow up to be the Black Panther.
I think that still is going to happen.
I hope so.
I think there's a possibility that Nakia is pregnant, and that we will see the birth of a baby in this movie, and there may be a little bit of a time jump at some. And again, with everything that's going on with the multiverse, and with Kang, who knows how time is going to change, and maybe a version of the child of the two of them from the future comes back as Black Panther. Like, we don't know anything, so we don't know where Marvel's going with all
I'm looking
this.
forward to this movie, though. To be honest with you, I'm really looking forward to it, and I know that Ironheart has a Mach 1 in this movie suit, and then a Mach 3 in this movie, which looks sick. I'm looking forward to this movie, but anyway, I'm sorry. I'm kind of bummed that I found that out. I'm going to try to stay off of social media.
Titanium in the dark web.
I know, it's awful.
It's
awful.
It's an addiction that you can't get over.
I know, but we still don't know a lot about this movie, so I'm still excited about it.
Yeah, and I think our hopes for that are, you and I've talked about this, that they address the passing of Chadwick Boseman, and they address.
Oh, I think it's going to be a whole eulogy. I mean, I think
you think it's going to be a very big part of the movie.
I think it's going to be a huge part of this movie. Unfortunately, not unfortunately. I didn't mean to say that. I hope it doesn't consume the movie and take up.
You hope that it's not an hour into the movie before we get past that and get into the plot of the movie,
exactly.
And Namor and the
the Atlanteans and all that. I hope they pay his respects, and I'm actually looking forward to seeing that. I just hope it doesn't consume the movie. Yeah. So.
And it might, though. We don't know.
No,
we don't know anything.
Nope.
And again, you and I have talked about this. The movies that we've gotten in Phase 4 thus far, and we know that Wakanda Forever is kind of the end of Phase 4, right?
Yeah.
We know that Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania begins Phase 5. That's kind of the first movie.
The multiverse saga.
Right. That's kind of what's going to start that off. The movies we've gotten in Phase 4 have been, for all intents and purposes, they felt like filler.
Yeah.
They really have felt like filler movies. Now, granted, most of them were filmed in the middle of a global pandemic, and they had unforeseen challenges and things that they had to deal with. But, if we go back and just look at all these movies that came out in Phase 4, the Eternals and Shang-Chi and Black Widow and Thor: Love and Thunder and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, they were self-contained independent movies that were entertaining, but not anything that was like wow.
Wow, yeah.
Nothing that was
no wow factor. No.
And
they were good, not great, but they were good. Again, we watched them again. I mean, we'll watch them again.
Not that we won't go,
No,
right? But I think that this movie has a lot of expectations on it because of that.
Yeah.
They're like, well, all these movies we've been watching have been like, okay, they're pretty good, but they're not great. And everybody's wondering, what are they going to do with Black Panther?
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of expectations, and I just hope we have realistic expectations for this movie and that we're not disappointed.
Agree. I think it's going to pull on the heartstrings and it's going to be very popular. I think it will do very well.
Oh, I'm sure. I do believe it will do very well as well. But again, and how does it fit into the grand scheme of things as they're moving forward as well? So lots of questions remain, and hey, we're only a couple months away from that coming out. So,
and I think the pandemic did have a lot to do with it. I just don't want that excuse anymore. I mean, I know it was devastating. It was very hard, and a lot of people suffered through that. But we need to look at the House of Dragons. Look at the Rings of Power. They were kind of filming during that same period, and that quality is unbelievable. I mean, those are great stories, and it's unbelievable. So I just don't want that to be an excuse anymore. I think Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, I hope sets the tone moving forward. I really do.
Well, and these directors and these actors and these studios are under enormous pressure to release these movies on time, on schedule. Yeah. And we heard this from Taika Waititi when he was talking about Thor: Love and Thunder. I mean, he was editing that movie probably up until like a week or two before that movie came out.
Yeah.
And we've heard tons of rumors of all the things that he had to cut out of that movie to get it under that.
Well, we've seen some of them.
Right, under that 90-minute timeline that Marvel wanted. And are we sacrificing quality? Are we sacrificing certain things just to get the movies out? And we know there's lots of delays out there. And, the biggest, I think, delay that the pandemic created was these special effects studios, right? These VFX artists out there. There's only so many of them, only so many studios, and
that can handle that type.
Right. Yeah. So, unfortunately, so many of these television shows and movies now depend on CGI to make the movies. I mean, it's not like you could just film everything back to back without now. There's so much work that's done after the movie's been filmed, and we've seen some. I mean, again, not to crack on She-Hulk, but it's not the best CGI in the world. No. And are they?
Some episodes
are
better than others. Yeah.
Are they cutting corners? I don't know. Right? Yeah.
Excellent. Well, great show, Professor. Let's ring the bell. School's over.
All right. Well, that's it for us this week. We'll be back next week for more Super Talk. To get in touch with us on social media, hit us up via email, supertalkpodcast@outlook.com or @supertalkpod on Twitter. Until then, stay super, everyone.
And we're out. Thank you, sir. Thank you, too.
Black Viper. Everyone likes this game. Haters gonna hate. And I know you can't wait to see the Black Viper. Round and round she goes.